How are you feeling today? It's Sunday. We're still in mid-June, and we have a lot of year ahead of us. So what are your feelings telling you about the market? How are you feeling about Bitcoin? Well, we're also going to talk about how you're feeling about Cardano. Now, I'm going to cheat, and I am going to use this fear and greed index to have a guess on how you might be feeling. Now, the reason technical analysis works at all, logically it should not work at all, but we are human beings, and a big part of our decision-making process is based on feelings and emotions. What's interesting about that is emotions are easy to manipulate by the powerful. And so if you look at what's going on in the fear and greed index, we are at 23. I mean, look at these historical values. So last month we were at fear of 26. Last week we were at extreme fear of 17. Yesterday, just fear. And today, extreme fear again. So what does that tell me is likely to happen? Well, funny enough, my guess is, because I think so much of what has happened the past number of months has all been manipulation, from the early pump that we got to now fudding like crazy to bring prices back down. It creates a lot of fear, and that fear is powerful. So I do listen to my emotions all the time. I just often recognize them. I listen to what they're telling me, but I often do the opposite. And so Warren Buffett said it best, even though he understands Bitcoin not at all. He said, when others are greedy, I get fearful. And when others are fearful, I get greedy. Why? Well, especially in an unregulated asset class like cryptocurrency, where manipulation is more out in the open. I still think it sometimes happens with stocks, but they have to be far more creative about how they do it without getting big fines from the regulators. So I think part of what's going on is manipulation. Now, if you think about logically, what is the bigger picture? Why is everyone so fearful? It doesn't make complete sense. Part of it is just the market being down. It started with Elon Musk and some China FUD, and then my guess is some coordinated dumping by some big whales at the beginning to kick off a downtrend. Now the big fear is, oh my gosh, we're heading towards a death cross, which historically almost always that leads to the bear market. And my guess is a lot of this is coordinated FUD because there's some large whales that wanted to make a lot of money. Number one, shorting, but number two, being able to buy a bunch of Bitcoin cheap, because I still think it is very bullish ahead for us. Now you can see, if we look at the Bitcoin chart, and this is Bitcoin versus US dollar, a 1 day on Coinbase, and we see this kind of head and shoulders pattern here, which means we could come all the way down to 20,000. If this pattern plays out, just know that these patterns don't always play out, because though they do capture human emotion and sentiment, when a market's manipulated, sometimes they manipulate these patterns to scare everyone else while then leading it a different direction. Better chart that I want to pull for you is one that I keep referring to, and the reason I keep referring to it, Brave New Liquid Coin Index for Bitcoin. I keep referring to it because 2013 is such a good year for us to look at because of what happened here. It is played out somewhat like this cycle. So 2013, it had this big run early in the year in April and May, well, April mostly, and then it turned around and it retraced huge, before then trading sideways for a while, but still had a gigantic parabolic run later in the year. Now, my guess is we're not going to have as long at trading sideways as this. I feel like there's so much more awareness about Bitcoin. There's so much good news happening with altcoins. It's just going to be in the public consciousness a lot more. Should we be so lucky to have this long accumulation time? Because this is a fantastic accumulation time. And then we have a blast off, then followed by a long entry into what is truly a bear market here, right? So that might be what we're looking at this cycle. So let me go back to here. We have this big parabolic run early in the year, March through April, bam, big retracement. Then my guess is it probably ends up looking, it might even come down some more, I'm not sure. And then we start this ascent. Now, the bigger question is this ascent going to be led off by Bitcoin, or is it going to be led off by altcoins? My guess is some altcoins, mostly Bitcoin. And the reason is, let's look at another chart, Bitcoin dominance. And we want to look at the full featured chart. All right, so we had this huge fall off in Bitcoin dominance here. Now, what usually happens is then Bitcoin gains some momentum before then another big fall off. And we see that in previous cycles. Now, the downside of looking at previous cycles for Bitcoin dominance is that altcoins didn't have near as much relevance 4 years ago than they do today. And in 2013, almost no relevance. So it's not going to play out tons like it did before. And my guess is permanently Bitcoin has lost dominance and that it will never go to like 97% again, because a lot of these altcoins are kind of blockchain 2.0 and then blockchain 3.0. And they didn't have very much function back here, but as they have function, Bitcoin will probably never go to such a high dominance ratio. But do you see how it's had this big swing down like this? And I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin have a big jump up. And what that looks like is Bitcoin taking off while most altcoins don't. Now, because so many altcoins are coming to fruition and they're becoming relevant, and I'm going to talk particularly about one, and that's Cardano. Cardano has some big stuff coming up soon, and so I wouldn't be shocked to see Cardano do really well. I mean, Cardano is my largest altcoin holding, and I ask myself the question, is it time to sell and hope for it to go lower, or is it time for me to buy more? Now, it may go lower, just understand, but when I asked myself that question just recently, and I knew I wanted to put some more money in the market, I was looking at where I wanted to put it, and I put it in Cardano. Now, I still have some on the sidelines in case I get really lucky and Cardano breaks down out of this, right? And it looked like it was breaking down out of this. And depending on exactly where you draw this, you know, I'm just drawing it where it has the most lines here. It could break down from here. And if it does, there's a few points that it could come down to. Let's put this in. So these horizontal rays, we're just going to put at a lot of where some support and resistance is. And there was a lot of support and resistance right around $1. So there's going to be some resistance if it tries to break up right around here. If it breaks down below $1, there's not a whole lot till it hits about 79 cents. There's a little bit of resistance. And maybe even that could be a little bit higher, about 83. If it breaks through that, just realize we may get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pick up Cardano at extremely cheap again. So the bigger question is, am I selling any of my Cardano to then hope to buy cheaper? Well, some people are. I'm not personally making that decision because I'm more of a swing trader than a day trader. And day traders, they play this differently than I do. As a swing trader, I ask myself, do I think it's going to be a lot higher in the next 3 months than it is presently? The answer to that for me is yes, I think it will be by quite a bit. How high? Well, maybe $6 or $7. So I know that's not gigantic in cryptocurrency. Although if you're talking about stocks and having something be 4x from here, that's incredible. People would die for those kind of returns. In crypto, in a bull run, that happens all the time. And Cardano is one of my most stable holdings. And even though this isn't stable at all, I mean, it was down here at 8 cents and went up to $2.50, and then it's bouncing around $1.50. Compared to some of the other altcoins, you know, it's not likely to go away. It maybe doesn't have 100x left in it this run. I would be completely shocked if it did. And if I'm really, really blessed and lucky, it might do 25x from here. but that's almost too much to hope for with it doing that well. I have made several, my prediction, several videos about my prediction that it will hit $1 trillion market cap this cycle, and I still think it will. It's just going to come later, and I think it's going to come in 2 spurts. So we're looking at this timeline that probably the next big update is going to be the Alonzo hard fork, and that is going to be, there we go. That is probably going to hit around September. I know they talked about August, but just large projects like this and making sure it launches right usually launches late. So my guess is there will be a big gain running up to that. And let's just draw this out. So say we go from there, we hit this line. So $6, if it hits the 1.618, that would be just below $6 there. Now that is if we only go from that point. If we take it from this lower, then that puts us right around 650. If it hits this I usually use these as this is my take profit 1 zone, my take profit 2 zone. In this case, I will be taking some profits at this zone, even though I think it could hit higher, because my guess is how this plays out is that in the next 3 to 4 months, as it runs up close to the Alonzo hard fork, and my guess is that it will. This isn't financial advice to you. I don't have a magic crystal ball. This is just the guesses that I'm making for my own trading, is that it will run up to about 650, and then it will have a big retracement. In fact, imagine if it does run up to 650, it could then retrace after that happens to $4 or even all the way back down here to $2.50, and that would be normal, especially once the news happens and it's out. Now, a lot of times you think, well, shoot, once they do that, they release the Alonzo hard fork, and all of a sudden everyone can really build on it, and there will probably be some announcements of projects from Ethereum coming over to Cardano. Won't that keep the momentum going? Well, the challenge is that there's a lot of people that have bought here, and when it hits those numbers, for them that's a take profit zone. So what happens is they start taking profits. That then brings the price down. Other people that were waiting to take profits start to get worried. That brings the price down further. And then other people get really worried, brings the price down further, and then it hits right here, and then it starts its ascent upward because everyone who was going to sell has then sold, and the buying pressure continues. And that's why you often see these retracements. Now, understanding how these retracements happen really helps you prepare so that you can make good buys, right? So now long term, do I think it can hit $30? Yeah. Just over $30 would take it to $1 trillion market cap. That's the upper end of what it possibly could hit. Now, don't take that as a statement that it is going to happen. I don't know that that's going to happen. That's just my guess of what could happen, because I think there's going to be some sideways trading generally in the market. And then as prices start going crazy again, there's a lot of people that were kind of sitting on the sidelines that were scared. There'll be some new people who may be sold who are going to buy back in, or they're going to then throw crazy amounts of money at it and do crazy things like borrow in order to buy more. And that is what usually happens at the end of the bull run, and they call that fear of missing out. And it causes prices to happen that should never happen, and yet they do, which is an excellent time to be selling and a terrible time to be buying. And so I will be selling. And I will be looking to buy back. My guess is Cardano retraces from the top at least 85%, if not 95%. Now, where do I get those numbers? Well, in 2017, the peak of the market, early 2018, late 2017, Bitcoin retraced from there to the bottom at 85%. Ethereum retraced 95%, and most altcoins retraced 99 to 99.5%. So why is it Bitcoin only retraced 85% and Ethereum retraced just 95%? Well, it's because they had better use cases. And so by this time, Cardano will have a better use case. So as to whether it retraces 85% or 95%, has to do with how strong that use case is, and I'm not exactly certain I think it'll be a little bit strong, but we're still in the very, very early days. So this, with the over booms, always leads to an over bust. Should it retrace 85 to 95%? It shouldn't, but we shouldn't also think of that as just because it shouldn't hit that it won't hit that. Because when things over bust, people dump and they get their emotions panicked, and so they sell out of a fear that it's going to go to zero and keep going down for forever, and then that creates the amazing buy opportunities that we're looking for. So that's my thoughts on Cardano and how it's going to play out for at least the next 3 months, as well as later in this year. I want to update you on one of the launch pads on Cardano. Now there's two that are really fighting for that space. And that doesn't mean other launch pads can't launch projects that are going to be developed on Cardano. These are the two that are primarily focused on the Cardano ecosystem, and that's CardStarter and OCamFi. So here's their website, ocam.finance. They are covering a project that I have done some coverage on because I'm excited about it, and that's Iagon right here. And so it is announced here. We don't know the price or anything on it yet. And so this is their website. If you're really bullish on the Cardano ecosystem, these launch pads are a good way to be able to get some pre-sale allocations. Now, launch pads are a good and bad thing. Now, it's frustrating to have to buy a whole bunch of the tokens of the platform in order to possibly get an allocation. The advantage is those allocations can do really well. A lot of times these projects, when they launch, they purposely hold their price down so they can talk about how many X's it did from its launch price. So they know they are selling those tokens at a discount in order to generate a lot of buzz. So if you go through the pains and the hassles of whitelisting, hopefully getting a ticket, a lottery ticket to be able to buy and stuff, usually with what you're able to buy, you get really good gains. And so that's the good and the bad of these launch pads. They do have their white paper on here that you can look at. I found it, where was it? Somewhere on their site, and it brought up their white paper. I wanted to talk about another one of the projects that I think is one of the best buys out there, and that's Chain. Their current market cap is not totally a small cap gem, though in today's day and age, 131 million, it seems so small compared to how many projects are in the billions in their market caps now. This one I've been a huge fan of for a long time. I talk about a lot. They haven't had the big boom that Matic or Polygon has, and yet their technology in many ways is comparable and in some ways better, in my opinion. And so I am a fundamentals person, and so that's why I like Chain with their technology bridges that they're building. And I think it's got a lot of potential. If you haven't looked at Chain, I recommend it. It's really at a nice retracement. In fact, let's go to the actual charts here I have here. So if you look at it, it's not quite at the 88.6 retracement, but it is pretty close to that. And it did wick down, almost touching it. And that's when I like to buy good long-term buys on huge retracements like this. Now, is there anything fundamentally I have heard about Chain that justifies this dip? Not at all. But just because things shouldn't happen doesn't mean that they don't. And when they do, that's awesome. It's a great opportunity to take advantage of it. Chain is my second largest holding. I believe in it that much long term. Now, one of the challenges the team has faced is that they're really good tech builders, and they've made good agreements. They've done a lot of amazing things. Their tech is really good. One of the downsides of people who are usually really strong on the tech side is that they are not marketing people. And so they have turned their focus the last few weeks to marketing, which is good. They did some kind of partnership with BitBoy, and BitBoy has been making his audience aware of them. And I think that will go well for the project, as well as Jack Liu is doing some interviews to get some exposure. In fact, he'll be coming on my channel next week. So what I would love is for those of you who have questions, write me your questions so I can put them in my preparation notes so I can ask your questions when we do an interview next week. All right, what else is going on? Well, I'm keeping an eye on longs versus shorts because they say about the market, it's geared to take the most amount of money from the most amount of people. And so when I see the number of shorts go really high, that tells me likely the whales are going to flip the direction the other way. Now, the number of shorts have gone up a lot. It used to be, I mean, look how many longs versus shorts, and see how they took a bunch of money from those people by continuing to drive it down. And now you're starting to get a lot of people thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to go crazy from here. When you see this come down a few steps more, that might be when they do massive big buys on Bitcoin and they swing it the other way. All right. I did talk about this project before. This is one I'm extremely interested in, especially for those in my audience that are in the US and other countries that often don't get to participate in pre-sales. And Unvest is a project that hasn't launched yet. It will be launching. I don't know which launch pad, but I can't wait for their, I guess, project to be in use. And this will allow those that are able to get into pre-sales, so venture capitalists and other people who are lucky enough to be able to get into the good pre-sales, they can sell their vested tokens to others, kind of like it gets wrapped in an NFT. And if you buy their allocation that's remaining, because how this usually works is when a project sells some tokens to, say, a venture capitalist pre-sale, and they might sell $10,000 worth, they that person can then turn around and sell their vested tokens, because when they put $10,000 in, usually the lockup periods look something like this. They'll get 10 or 15% of their tokens at the initial launch of the token. The rest have some kind of vesting period, and it might be they get every quarter, for 4 quarters, they get 1/4 of the remaining tokens unlocked to them or sent to them. So what happens when you buy that, say they get 10% released and they sell those, and then they might take the other and just sell that allocation, and they'll put a price on it and list it. And if it's a good price, in other words, in order to sell it, they're going to have to heavily discount it, because in order to get those tokens, you're going to have to wait the vesting period. But it's a chance for all these people in the US and other countries to be able to participate in the pre-sale. Now, it's not as good as having bought the project right away, where you then get the initial 10%, and if that project does really well, you could possibly get your initial money back then. But just know what will often happen is, say the project that they had invested in 10x's, they get 10% of their tokens unlocked right away, they sell that, they get their initial money back. So they're looking at this as profit. So a lot of times you can get the remaining vested tokens from them at a huge discount. At least that's how I hope it plays out. For those of you in the US, I'm really excited about this, because it's as close as it's probably going to get for you to be able to get pre-sale allocations, at least unless major regulatory changes. Perhaps the SEC gets cut out of being able to oversee Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies and altcoins at all. That's the only way I could see that changing. What else is going on? Well, see, these kind of periods are boring. And you know how I share with you to have a long-term vision, that if you really want to make money in this space, you got to look for 5 years down the road, be here for this cycle and the next cycle. Because in one cycle, you're not likely to make you rich. And there's a lot of learning lessons that'll happen during that first cycle. And if you stick around, and you especially stick around during the bear market, and you learn to make smarter and smarter decisions, the chances of you making life-changing wealth in 2 cycles is, it far exceeds your chance of making wealth in 1 cycle. So why not make a longer-term commitment? 5 years isn't really all that long. What else are you going to be doing? However, the last 4 weeks, what happens when things are down? How does that impact you? It makes it harder for you to stay focused and pay attention, right? Now, if you're here listening to this video now, I congratulate you, because you're already taking the first steps. Because what I can tell you about the bear market is it gets boring. Why? because it just feels like bad news a lot. And you look at your portfolio and it's down. Even if you're making some nice pickups, at the time, it's hard to tell. When you're in the middle of the bear market, you might make some pickups being like, okay, this is near the bottom, and it's not. And then you see that your portfolio halved from what it was, and it gets frustrating. And then you're just sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh. But you fast forward it 12 or 18 months from there, you realize how cheap you were buying things at, and you forget all the pain you felt in that bear market. So right now we're in this little mini bear market, and you're getting a taste of what the bear market feels like. And I hope that's helping you commit to be around the following bear market, because that's when the very best buys will happen. That's when so much more of your portfolio has a chance to 20x, 50x, 100x, 300x. And so that is a golden time to be around. But right now, there's no better time than the present to be learning. Now, do I think we still have bull market, plenty of bull market ahead of us? I do. That's my best guess. Do note again, this isn't financial advice. How you play it is really on you. We're all big boys and girls here making our own decisions for ourselves. I'm just an investor that started a YouTube channel. I don't know everything. My portfolio has done exceptionally well for me, but I was bad before I was good at crypto investing, and I've been investing in general for 20 years, which helped my learning curve speed up with crypto, but I still had to touch the hot stove several times before learning not to touch the hot stove, like buying high, with FOMO. So we were talking about Yuan Chain earlier. One of the things I love about Yuan Chain is they have this really good farming through Zookeeper Finance paired with OneSwap.finance. So if you think about this, this is just like a Uniswap on Yuan Chain, and you can get MetaMask configured to work with Yuan Chain so that you can send your Yuan Chain from an exchange to here. And then you can have that connected up to interact with OneSwap. So you can swap Yuan Chain with, Yuan Doge, Yuan EOS. See, Yuan Chain has some of the best bridging technology. Isn't it interesting? You can buy Doge on Yuan Chain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. These are all bridged versions. Yuan Ocean, Yuan Sushi, Yuan Uniswap, Yuan USDT. Now you can take many of these and then you can put them in a pool, and you can add to that pool, and then you can bring those LP tokens. When you put those pairs in a pool, you can then, there is a video I did that walks through step by step how to do this if you look in the history about Zookeeper. But then you can make amazing farming gains. Now, what I like about this is when things get boring, it gives you good news every single day. So I wake up every morning and I get to harvest, which is a lot of fun. And, you can reinvest it. You can harvest some of this and reinvest what you're making in other stuff. You can take that and you can take it off platform and reinvest it in other things that are down. And so it gives you some passive income off of what you're holding. Like, I have a lot staked in these 3 pools, but there's lots of great pools. I have done more of the pools in the past, but mine are currently in Yuan and the WASP token and the Yuan Chain token. This is Yuan Chain and Ethereum, and this is WASP and Zoo. Now, both of these WASP and Zoo are token rewards that you get. See that? How that's going up? Those are things that you can get through Zookeeper and OneSwap as reward tokens. And so I went in there because the APY is pretty high, but most of mine is in this bigger one with Yuan Chain and WASP, because I believe so much in Yuan Chain's potential. And what tends to happen is Yuan Chain goes up, WASP goes up too. And so if they go up at the same pace, then there's less impermanent loss, is what I like about this. I went into this for stability, Ethereum versus Yuan Chain here, but there are lots of great pools out there. Some of the other, I know a lot of people are staked in this USDC, USDT, because they don't want to have exposure to the downside, so they're just here earning some Zoo and some WASP. Some of the other pools are XRP and Yuan Chain. Personally, I don't hold any XRP. I know a lot of people are excited about it. Not one of my favorites, but I don't hate on anyone for doing it. a technology I'm excited about for XRP, and I hope that it really does decrease remittances around the world. All right, what else is on my mind? Well, that is Polygon Matic. I looked at the other day. It's had a big retracement, but it had a gigantic run. So, of course, a retracement is in order. Look at that market cap all the way to 8.6 billion. That's crazy. All right, that's my thoughts for the day. Overall, if you waited till this end, all the way till the end, I'd like to give you some extra nuggets on my thoughts. Now, what do I think? We're in mid-June here. I shared with you earlier that I think we have plenty of bull run left. Now, how this bull run plays out, I don't know. It could be one longer parabolic move, or it might be another kind of bigger parabolic move followed by a retracement and then one gigantic one near the end. If it plays out either one of those ways, right now is a fantastic time to be buying. If it plays out that we really did hit the bear market, and I'd give it a 10% chance that this is the beginning of the bear market and it goes down from here, then right now is an absolutely terrible time to buy. So each of you needs to weigh that for yourself to decide what decisions you're going to make. What guesses am I making? Well, I'm all in on it being still a bull market and that we will have at least one parabolic move left. That's just how I'm deciding to play it. What are some of the biggest gems out there? Well, I've shared with you my thoughts before. I do think Wanchain is one of the biggest gems, but I've covered these in the past and I still believe it. EOS Network, look at this retracement. I've been stocking up on EOS. Look at this kind of like some flattening here. Its market cap is all the way down to 30 million. Now, do note that its fully diluted valuation is over 10x higher than this because a bunch of their supply is not in circulation yet. In fact, only about 7% of their supply is in circulation. But this is a competitor kind of to Theta and YouTube at the same time. And so they do have EOS Tube, EOS TV, and a subscription video service. I don't know if they'll make it. They may. They seem to have a really good team. They have some good backers. If they do, it will go incredibly well. And if they don't, I don't know. But just because I'm holding and buying at this bottom doesn't mean I'm going to hold them for forever. I just plan to hold them through what I think is the next major bull run. And then I'm going to reevaluate, will I hold some of it longer? Because at a minimum, I'll be getting my initial investment out. And then whether I hold it longer depends on what I see from the team. Another one that I've been picking up is Shadows. And look at that market cap. That I love. Now, it's retraced like 90% from its high of $3.30 that's showing here. I think it actually hit higher. It's just not reflected there. So that's a 90% retracement. I like that kind of buy. It's flattening at the bottom here. That doesn't mean it won't go down from here. It could. And the other one that I'm bullish on as far as these types of retracements. Now, these all went through what happens when a launch pad does their job well, and they help squeeze the supply, get them to shoot off to the moon. And then what usually happens is people forget about them. A lot of people that were holding, they panic sell, and it creates this nice rounded bottom here, and then it gets really attractive. So at 27 cents, total market cap of 7 million. Realize that the fully diluted market cap is 136 million, but current market cap is just under 8 million. That's what I'm picking up. So if you stuck around this long, just some of my thoughts on what I've made big buys on in the past 10 days, some of those, as well as I did pick up some more Cardano, $1.50. I just couldn't pass it up. Just is what it is. I'm very bullish on Cardano. Want to thank you all for joining me. This is a song from, one of you who created this amazing outro for all of you Rainn makers. Rainmakers are those subscribers that, that they've got the bigger vision, that they're committing to themselves for at least the 5 years because they want to give themselves the biggest chance of success for the long term. Now, many of them are smart, brilliant, in fact, and they might do exceptionally well this bull run, or maybe they won't, but over 5 years, your chances improve drastically if you commit yourself to being around during the bear market and for the next bull run, regardless of how well you do this run. Now, you did know how boring it can get when things are down, and imagine about 18 months of that. It's rough. So the question is, will you stick around? Because if so, you can totally change your family's finances for forever if you make some smart decisions and use that time to really learn and grow and then make some good pickups. All right. Thanks for joining me. Take it away, Manuela.
Success is falling, flowing like rain. The timing's right, we're getting paid. Come on, Rainmakers, let's make this happen. Let all the haters do their thing.